Good morning, my love muffins. Reverend Sue from All Paths to God, recording live from my living room. Well, a couple updates. The business with our church home, both the new one on La Jolla is not a closed chapter yet, but unfolding through the court system. And the American Ideals Foundation is beginning to develop their property down by Gannon University. So we will have a home there if we would like, but that's years away. And I did get notified by Ron Kress, who was renting us the room in the building behind CVS, that he is going to break the lease. And so we will not be meeting there anymore. So it is just God telling us that there is something better for us when that time comes that we can gather in person again. You know, and a church is not about a building. It's about its people and its fellowship and its connection to each other. We've been, 5 months, going on a half a year that we haven't met together, and yet we are still thriving. So I want to thank all of you for continuing to keep in touch. I want to thank all of you for continuing to tithe and make donations. Honestly, the biggest expense is me. And keeping me employed, and I greatly appreciate it. Though I wasn't exactly feeling worthy this week. I was thanking God that I wasn't part of a reality show where cameras were following me around. Last Sunday, I had to be angrier and more frustrated than I remember being in forever. And I was behaving accordingly. I had recorded the Sunday service on my phone and then went to transfer it, and the cat ate through the wire and the wire didn't work. And so then I tried to do it on the computer and the computer didn't work. So then I recorded it on a borrowed iPad, and then I couldn't get it to download. And needless to say, it was very frustrating. I was not practicing what I preach at all. And I was certainly not reaching out SOSing for help either. And when we finally did get it downloaded on my phone and then get it transferred to Facebook, we saw that little progress bar go 1%, 1.1%, 1.2%. Oh my goodness, it took hours to upload for some reason. So I have since gotten a new cord. I did finally SOS and asked Jerry, our treasurer and our board, if we couldn't get a new iPad, since social media and streaming seems to be at least a part of what we're going to be all about. And that trying to use borrowed machines that have older programs and that are incompatible with the current programs that we're using in Facebook, and just wasn't working for me. So we did that. And they promised it would be delivered on Friday. And by late afternoon yesterday, it still wasn't here. So then I went and finally did learn how to record this on my computer, and I did that. And then while trying to upload it to Facebook, I got some sort of corruption error, and it converted the document to something that didn't even look like a movie. And ultimately I had to erase it. And so now I'm starting over again on my phone, this time hopefully with a cord that will work when all is said and done. But, a journey in frustration. You know, I saw a TED Talk that was talking about that little progress bar that you have on computers and that show that something's downloading, and you know they say, and they are in all different forms, but they say it really doesn't even matter if they're accurate. As a matter of fact, if they are accurate, and they do, like the one on Facebook where it goes in a very rhythmic, constant speed, that you actually think it's getting slower. And so the tests that they ran show that the best thing to do is to have that progress bar jump, whoop, and then go slow toward the end. But as long as we have a visual cue that we are working toward and moving toward our goal, then they say it dulls the pain and the frustration of waiting. Well, it didn't dull my pain and my frustration, that's for sure. And the irony did not escape me that while all this was going on, I was in the process of posting a sermon, teaching and preaching that in the midst of our struggles, remember, grace and God and goodness is there. And when we can't remember, SOS, use all the faith we have and use all the faith we can borrow. Clearly was unable to do that. But interestingly, when things were all finished last Sunday, I went on and checked my messages, and there was a message from my younger sister, Remya, who most of you know suffered a stroke after having a car accident a year and a half ago, and sometimes has quite a bit of difficulty as a result of that. And there was a text from her, not having heard the sermon, but to all my siblings, that said, having a difficult day, make me laugh. Well, there's a great example of an SOS. And you should have seen the ridiculous things that my siblings were texting to her. Well, I'm glad I never professed that on this journey that I have accomplished these goals and then I'm reaching out to teach people and lift them up to where I am. I'm glad I made it clear from the beginning the hypocrisy of it all, that while I understand the principles, I'm very much journeying along this path right with everybody else right beside me. And that's one of the things I love about all paths to God. But Ernest Holmes couldn't have been more clear for practitioners and ministers. And he said, it is not our endeavor to teach people, to preach, to convince people of our faith. It is to prove something, first to ourselves and then to others. And we have no authority before the world, nor should we ask for any, nor will we have any ever, I hope, other than the authority of the work that follows the word. So what is he talking about? Ultimately, he's saying that once we believe what we believe, know the truth and the truth will set us free, that we should produce evidence, that we should demonstrate, that we should manifest the content of our prayer treatments, of our affirmations, of our revised and raised belief system in grace and goodness flowing to and through our lives. Because life always conforms to our beliefs. So as we raise ourselves in this new belief system, then our circumstances will visibly raise along with us in this journey. Produce evidence, prove something. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that I am producing evidence and proving something. Matter of fact, this is one of the aspects that made me believe this teaching. I just am not proving it necessarily the way I want to all the time. Obviously, if a week was filled with frustration, then I only need to look at where my mental, emotional space is and say, are my circumstances matching my mind? And there's no doubt that lately I've been surrounded by frustration. I've been counseling people who are dealing with frustration. I've been dealing with frustration. We've all been dealing with frustration with the COVID and the change of the way we go about living our lives. So yes, the dominant thought in my mind and the dominant emotion that I'm experiencing oftentimes is frustration. So is there any big surprise that I keep manifesting and creating situations about which to be frustrated? So when we know this, we pray to God. We pray to that power for good in the universe, and we say, please take me away from this situation. And if you can't change the situation, at least make me patient, make me loving. But it doesn't seem to work, as we seem to challenge one frustrating situation after the next. So we get frustrated at feeling frustrated, and so we really try. And what that typically means is that we do the same thing, only more and harder. I don't know why when something we're doing isn't working, we think that doing more of it will. And when it comes to frustration, the thing we're usually trying is, the Bob Newhart approach. Most of you remember the video of someone going in and needing help and saying he could help them in 2 words: stop it. That's it, stop it. Many times when we're dealing with negative feelings, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stop it. And if we do actually muster up enough willpower to stop our focus on these feelings and to suppress them, all we did was move them from our conscious mind to our subconscious mind. And just because it's in our subconscious doesn't mean that they're harmless. We say all the time, when we bury our thoughts and feelings that disturb us, we bury them alive, meaning they still have a vibration in the law of the universe that creates our circumstances. So when we focus on frustration, when we complain about our frustration, when we talk about our frustration, when we think about our frustration, we're giving energy to it. And consequently, according to the law of the universe, it grows. And when we work to not focus on frustration, we're also focusing on it. And we give energy to it, and it grows. So while we don't have our TED Talks, ideas worth spreading progress bar to inform us where we are on that journey, we're confident that we've tried everything and that nothing works. And we say that over and over again. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and just nothing seems to work. Well, TED Talks, their motto is ideas worth spreading. So our talks motto should be ideas worth changing. I tried everything and nothing works. That's an idea worth changing. Something works. That's why Ernest Holmes said to practitioners and ministers, our authority can only be the work that follows the word. Results. So earlier this week, I was doing a meditation and I was trying to work through frustration, and I was saying, God, today, I want to know you. I want to know the truth. And I'm not talking about I want to talk about knowing the truth and knowing God. And I'm not even talking about I want to practice the faith and trust in knowing the truth and knowing God. And that's just more words. I want to know you today. I want to see you show up in my affairs. I want to see you show up in my circumstances. I want to see the law operating and unfolding right in front of my very eyes. And with that, I had this image of walking through a crowded place, kind of like an airport. And I was with somebody, I don't know who I was with, but I could see myself with somebody, and we were quite in a hurry to get to the other side of the building. It was very urgent. And they got on this people mover, that level escalator that just, and they just were moving ahead. I, on the other hand, chose to walk. And I was walking and dragging a suitcase, and I was bumping into people, and people were coming toward me, and I was having to go to the right and having to go to the left, and I kept seeing this person just casually kind of leaning against the handrail and just moving, gliding ahead of me. And the message I got was, oftentimes when we claim to be walking with God and knowing truth, we're really walking alone. And we're trying to fix and change all the obstacles in our path, and we're getting frustrated because they're there and they're impeding our movement toward our goal. If we want to enable the flow and the increase of God in our lives, well then we have to walk with God, especially in these challenging situations. So get on the people mover with God was the message. Well, I was thinking about this relative to the frustration I was experiencing and thinking, when we pray, first of all, we often pray separate from the actual situation, but we pray about the situation. We often say, please, make me more patient, make me more loving, make this situation not occur this week. We're looking for, at that moment that it rises again, for God to enter that situation and to lift it and to lift us. We're basically trying to fix frustration. So we want God, the power of love, the power of peace and joy and harmony, to lower itself into an experience it can't possibly have of frustration and lift it. It's an impossibility. And we want to dissect it and pray about the aspects of it. We want to get to the bottom of it. And now, I'm not suggesting that we don't problem solve, that we don't explore our challenges when we have them and use our best skills in coming up with ideas and suggestions of how to best manage them. But the idea worth changing is that prayer and problem exploration, problem solving, are not the same. Positive affirmations that we want to put the law of the universe into motion for the betterment of the situation, and looking at the problem, talking about the problem, experiencing the problem, are not the same. They are mutually exclusive. A mental and an emotional revisiting of frustration in any of its aspects, even with the intention to express and explore and change, is an affirmation against God and the truth. Because we can't master, we can't transcend our limited experiential truth if we keep nursing it, if we keep giving energy to it. So think about frustration. Frustration is the feeling of being annoyed, especially because of an inability to make something happen the way we want it to. And usually that translates into making someone do something the way we want them to. And no doubt, we seemingly have more frustration with the ones we love, the ones we're with the most, the ones that we should have the most intimate and caring and supportive and lifting connection with. Why? Well, because we all have a certain level of tolerance for frustration in our human experience, and it diminishes with repeated exposure. So when something does agitate us and frustrate us, the next time it happens sooner, quicker, longer, more. And that happens over and over and over and over and over again until this commands our attention and our focus. It regulates our emotional experience. According to an article in Psychology Today, repeated frustration clouds our mind, our clear thinking, and it results in distortions of thinking. We start entertaining ideas that simply are not the truth. They're false ideas. And we develop these attitudes of entitlement. The world, the other people should, in fact, do things the way we want them to. And we develop a rigidity of expectations. Well, these things couldn't be more contradictory to praying to be lifted and for change. So it makes it very unlikely that we'll look for and that we'll see any constructive action that we can possibly take, and the goodness and the grace of God flowing through any situation. Thus, we mismanage our frustration. And poorly managed frustration is toxic to ourselves, our spiritual goals, and extremely toxic to our relationships. It causes us to build up resentment for people and situations. Even when over small things, we can ultimately become overwhelmed with frustration so that we end up with no desire to relate in a positive way. It also makes us likely to assign labels or all-inclusive characteristics about the source of the trigger of the frustration. He's uncooperative, she's obstinate, I'm forgetful, I'm unorganized. And we then see the problem as permanent. Tried everything, nothing works, which creates and amplifies a sense of helplessness and hopelessness. So when we're praying, when we're using this power for good in the universe to fix a problem, a person, or a situation, or render us in some sort of different space, we're really just feeding and affirming the problem. That's why it seems that nothing works. So an idea worth changing is we don't fix frustration. We fix on moving with God. We fix on getting on that people mover. We fix on, in the event that God in grace and good were flowing through this situation, what would be different about me? Could I have a sense of entitlement? Could I label people with the characteristics that I do and believe that to be the all-inclusive truth, that they cannot possibly change or grow? So we get on that people mover with God and we turn away from thoughts about frustration, talk about frustration, exploring and examining what caused the frustration. We're not ignoring and denying that it's an issue. We are focusing on what could unfold in that very place at this very time in a way that shifted our experience for the better. Esther Hicks said, thinking about the problem over and over and over again, refiguring things out, is like trying to declutter a room. She said, you know the room, right? And I'm sure you do. The one where we stash everything that we haven't wanted to deal with. That room should have a warning sign on the door. Don't go in here. It will set you back on your spiritual journey. It will derail you. But we go in there with the intention that we're going to eliminate stuff. We're just going to weed out all the unwanted things. So in just a short period of time, we're going to go in, we're going to make decisions of what we keep, what we toss, what we give away. We're just going to weed it down. But within minutes, we're reading that box of old letters, and 12 hours later, nothing's moved. It's too overwhelming to visit aspects of a problem when we're trying to move away from them, thin them out, decide what doesn't work for us, and shift from them. We should just nail the door shut, Esther says, and open another room. And put more stuff in it until it's filled up, and then sell the house. But we get the message. Move away from any thoughts or talk about the cause of the frustration and focus on what would it look like, what would it feel like if in this situation I was flowing with the grace and good of God. Not fixing the frustration, fixing on God. Know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. Ernest Holmes says, it's useless to search for truth when our minds are blind to the false. We have ideas, lots of ideas. Some of them are right and some of them are wrong. And we have to be willing to abandon the wrong ideas. And these locked in labels of people and situations that cause us frustration are ideas that are wrong, that we have to move away from. They are not the truth of the situation or the people. And we need to nail that door shut and get on the people mover with God. Affirm God into visibility. Affirm grace and good into visibility. Affirm love and peace into visibility, here and now. And the here is everywhere, and the now is always. So we are at the very time that we're feeling frustrated, which today would be a good example, because today would be a great circumstantial reason for me to feel frustrated. iPad didn't arrive, recorded my sermon on the computer, checked it was all good, changed my clothes, broke down the filming, then found out it wasn't going to work, have to start all over again. But there's something different today, because today I'm on the people mover. Today, even though those things happen, they're not commanding my mood. They're not commanding my words. They're not commanding my thoughts. My thoughts are going to, hey, I know the truth. I know that these things are not the truth of who I am. It's not the truth of the way the situations have to be. It doesn't matter how many times I tried to fix things. On the level of fixing things, that's not my goal. My goal is always to harmonize with the truth of who I am. And I know as I go there, I will produce evidence. I will produce manifestations. I will prove the principle. Consciousness creates. There's a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. And it is all about our decisions, our choices, and whether we choose to get on that flow or to fight through the obstacles ourselves. So we don't want to make the mistake of thinking that we're praying for God's help, when in reality, because of the law of the universe, we're actually promoting more of what we don't want. That's an idea worth changing. So your mission is to know that something works, and in your most challenging situations, with your most challenging people, get on the people mover. Don't try to fix the situation. Try to imagine what it would be like as grace and God and goodness flow through you right where you stand. Get on the people mover, here and now. And the here is everywhere, and the now is always. We can't go back and make a new start, but we can start now and make a new ending. We are the people. Now is the time. And this is the way. Namaste, my friends. Namaste. Namaste, my friends.